It's DUG24. 24 hours, 24 sessions, 24 speakers, 100% Microsoft Dynamics. It's unparalleled, unprecedented, and undeniable fun with your hosts Beau Schwieso and Bobby Small. Let's get into it with another episode of DUG24.
All right. Excited to bring on Rachel Profitt now. I mean, what a great lineup. We're going right from vibing to vibe coding for dummies, and I'm a dummy, so I'm excited about this one. Thanks again, Frederick.
I suppose I probably need to share my screen.
Yeah.
We could just use Frederick's slides.
Yeah, you have to use his slides now.
Use Frederick's slides. Here, I'll go full screen here. I don't know, one of these buttons. Maybe.
We believe in you.
I'm pressing it. I'm in a dev box and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Oh, there we go. I made it go full screen.
What's happening is it's coming up to the witching hour. You know, Beau just turned over into the midnight hour. Rachel and I are sitting at 11 p.m. here in Colorado.
Full disclosure, I'm at the mothership and it is only 10 p.m.
Oh, fair enough. So you're at 10.
Early.
So there you go.
It's not even my bedtime yet.
It is hours past my bedtime.
Yeah, same. Well, welcome everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Rachel Profitt. I always like to do inclusive and accessible introductions. I'm a white woman with long red hair that's pulled back today. I am wearing a white shirt with some gray pattern, like geometric pattern on it. I'm wearing my rose-colored glasses, and I'm not in my office with my epic sticker wall behind me. I got a blur background because behind me is my hotel room, because I am at the mothership here in Redmond at the Microsoft offices this week, working on Project Mia. And very exciting stuff happening there with like configuration and migrating and implementing Dynamics 365 via agents. So, but that's not what my presentation is going to be about today. My presentation today is vibe coding for dummies. And I'm just going to full disclosure and put it out there. I am not a developer. But I'm going to teach all of you how to be the most amazing developer you can ever be today, and why you might care and why you might want to do this. Even if you're but I'm not a developer. Why would I want to vibe code ever? And the answer is you want to vibe code. I was kind of resistant and hesitant to learn this. I was like, oh, I'm not a developer. I don't need to learn this stuff. Life-changing. Everything about vibe coding has been life-changing for me in so many positive ways. And so what I'm going to give you today is a beginner-friendly guide for someone who is not a developer. So I want to, I don't know what time it is for all of you, but I was kind of hoping we could maybe wake up the chat. And can everybody put into the Teams chat for me today? What time is it? Where are you dialing in from? And what do you do in your day job? So icebreaker, put it in there. I'm going to keep going, but I want you all to put it in it's totally okay if you're not a developer. If you're an accountant, my roots are in accounting, put it in the chat. Let's wake this thing up. For me, it's 10 p.m. For Bobby, it's 11 p.m. Beau, it's midnight. We're burning the midnight oil now. So wherever you're dialing in from today, thanks so much for joining us. And let's learn how to vibe code.
That's somebody from India. That might be they might win for the farthest away today.
Yeah, that's awesome.
From us. Yep.
What time is it in India right now?
10:35 a.m.
Oh, well, it's a normal time of day. You're probably this is amazing. I don't have to stay up until 10 p.m. to learn about new stuff.
Some folks from Germany. That. Awesome.
Love that. Germany, it's early morning, much like Frederick, yeah?
Yep. Just flipped over to 7 a.m.
Awesome. So we've got people from all over the world. I love this. So why vibe coding matters right now. So in the old world, right, I'm saying that like it's like the Roman Empire or something. Like, I don't know. Like, so in the past, if we wanted to develop something, for those that like, I don't know how ever many of you are non-developers, but if you're like me, you used to have to like put in a request to your IT department and like wait for somebody to like make a ticket and like do a bunch of stuff, and like maybe they would like agree to like develop your thing, and maybe they would go forth and develop it, and maybe the results of whatever they developed might meet your requirements. I don't know, maybe show of hands on Teams, how many of you have that like ever had an experience like this with your IT department or something, like whether you're technical or not? I
can give you the other side of it, because I was
sides.
the IT department, and so I was the backlog. It's like I can only do so much. So at the end of the day, there's always a backlog.
Yeah. For those of you who are like me and you're like the business owner, you're the business user, like you do whatever it is you do all day, every day. You are the expert in whatever it is you do all day, every day. And that actually prepares you to be the better vibe coder than anybody in the IT department ever would be. Because especially if you use tools like Cowork and WorkIQ, which Frederick talked about some of those things in his keynote, you understand your business process likely better than the IT department would, even after hours and hours and hours of discovery and documentation and so on, because you do it all day, every day. And your email and your like files that you open every day are a much better queue than IT's will ever be. Like when you think about fundamentally what WorkIQ is and what Cowork does. In this new world, right, this idea that we can start with natural language and we can create a draft and we can iterate on it and keep ideas fresh and be like, oh, and then I thought of this, and oh, and then I thought of that, right? This idea is like super powerful. And for those of you who are like close to the business process, the problem that you're experiencing, like you're the one with the problem, right? That you went to IT in the first place with. Like you are better positioned to make a better solution and to draft using Copilot and AI than anybody else in your organization. And when we think about the best case scenario of vibe coding, humans are going to set the intent and like, what's the flavor? What's your flavor? Tell me what's your flavor. Sorry, I'm going to like random like words. I'm just going to like trigger a random song in my head. You're going to define like what should it do? What shouldn't it do? Because you know it best. And we're going to verify it, right? Vibe coding isn't about like Terminator, for those of us that are like older, or Megan for those of us who are younger, or Megan 2.0, taking over the world and like writing code like on its own. That is not what vibe coding is. And I get why it's a real fear, and it should be a real fear, but that's why we need humans in the loop. And vibe coding is a very real thing. And even if you're not a developer, I hope that you leave today with some skills to go try some stuff out, and some courage, maybe more so than skills, to like go try some stuff out. Because every single person on this call, I guarantee, has a problem or a pain point in your day-to-day work that you're like, man, I wish I would just do this. And if you can have a chit chat with Copilot about, man, I wish it would just do this, you too can be a developer. So this is my definition of vibe coding in one sentence. Describing an outcome. So like what is it that I aspire to? Like, man, I wish it could do this. Letting AI draft the path. And then you're like, it does some stuff. And then you're like, man, AI, you're really dumb. No, you forgot about this. And you didn't read my email like I told you. And, oh, I just remembered. I have this other SharePoint file out here, or folder, of all this like really cool stuff that explains blah, 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 blah. And there's this other thing over here. with actual examples and results and tests and like steering it to make it be what you want it to be and what you need it to be to solve that problem of, man, I wish it would really do this, right? So this idea of vibe coding it's an iterative process. When I vibe code, if I had some crazy expectation that I was going to like open my GitHub Copilot or N365 Copilot or Scout or whatever, and I'm going to talk about different tools in a little while too. If I thought that I was going to open any of these tools and like go straight to type in what I want it to do and get the perfect answer on pass one, that is not vibe coding. Vibe coding is like, it's this iterative conversation. You like think of the AI tool that you're using as like a really good IT developer who you can describe your problems to, give it that prompt, like state the business outcome, the problem, the man I wish it would, and like what does success look like, right? And this is a principle, if you're familiar with success by design and the entire framework of how we describe to people how a Dynamics 365 implementation should go. It's like these 4 basic steps, right? Start with an actual business problem and like, what is the goal? Like, what is it you want to achieve? Do I want this thing to like be fully automated? Do I want it to like find all the errors and output them in a way that I as a human can review them, whatever that may be. So like we're prompting and then we're inspecting. So like this is probably one of those important aspects here where vibe coding is not the Terminator and it's not Megan or Megan 2.0, because we're always inspecting and we're always constraining. So inspecting means like, you, the human, you have to actually look at it. And like sometimes I write a prompt and like me and Copilot are not on the same page. I'm like, seriously, dude, like what are you doing? That is not at all what I said to do. And my GitHub Copilot is a dude, yours might be a chick. I don't know. Like give it a pronoun. I don't care. But sometimes when I talk to my Copilot, it just gets it. We're like, we are full on, we are vibing. And then other times I'm like, you're clearly an alien from another planet and we don't understand each other. And I need to like describe more because whatever you just created is not at all what I asked for. And constraints. Constraints are really important. And if like those of you who know me probably know that I'm like the queen of business processes. I'm the creator and like implementer of the Microsoft Business Process Catalog. And I love a business process just as much as anybody, maybe more than anybody. I don't know. But constraints are actually really important because constraints are like the, hey, don't do this. When I describe to people like how to use AI, like my grandma or my parents or my friends who are like the least tech savvy people I know, one of the things that I like to describe to them is that when you use AI, like ChatGPT, Copilot, whatever it is, Gemini, etc., you need to pretend like it is your 5 to 7 year old child and you're asking it to do your job for you. And I don't know how many of you have 5 to 7 year old children. I don't have any kids, but I know like I've got nieces and nephews and I love them dearly and they're pretty intelligent and most of them understand how to like read and follow instructions and like use a keyboard. And that's about the only assumptions that you can make about AI. It can read and understand instructions and it can use a keyboard. If you make any other assumptions about your AI, you've probably made wrong assumptions. Constraints are probably one of the most important things to actually get the output that you want from your AI. So telling it exactly what to do and what not to do, like what is off limits. And we're going to assume that if you tell it that it's off limits, it's not going to do those things. And so adding those rules, examples, tests, and boundaries are so, so important. And then the last point here, the repeat, is that it's iterative. You're never going to write the perfect prompt the first time. So you're going to write that prompt, it's going to do something, and you're going to look at the results, and you're going to be like, that was pretty close, but you kind of missed this. And maybe it didn't miss anything, but maybe it sparked you to think of something else that you wanted to add in. And so you add something else in, and you iterate in small loops until the thing that it produces is actually useful. So in Frederick's presentation, he talked a lot about a number of different tools, and I still struggle with this one. I'm going to be real. And I do have a favorite, I maybe wouldn't call it a favorite. It's like saying like one of your children is your favorite. None of them are your favorite. They're all your favorite. But you know, some of your kids are maybe better at soccer, and like one of them might be better at playing the violin. And they're two very different things. And it doesn't mean that one child is better than the other child. It just means that one of them is better at sports and one of them is better at playing an instrument. And the same is true of the various tools. The same is true of the various LLM models that are available out there. So there are more tools than what I put on this slide, but the kind of 4 basic tools, right? We've got Microsoft 365 Copilot, GitHub Copilot, Microsoft Scout, which is kind of the new player to the game, and Copilot Studio. And like, this is kind of a very high level, like, which Copilot do I choose to use for what? And I do definitely use all 4 of them, but I gravitate more towards one of them, and I'll tell you which one I gravitate more towards a little bit later on and why. But M365 Copilot, or like the traditional Copilot, is really good at thinking and summarizing and drafting and comparing work. M365 Copilot has a couple features available out of the box, like CoWork and WorkIQ, that give access to your Outlook and your email and your Teams chat messages. And so when I want to look across lots of different applications and platforms to gather information or do research, M365 Copilot is kind of my tool of choice that I always go to. M365 Copilot can absolutely write code. It can do lots of other things. But it's not my first choice when I think about coding, and that's where GitHub Copilot comes in. And I could probably do a whole nother session on GitHub for Dummies because, believe me, I am still in the GitHub for Dummies stage of my career. I am not a developer, but I'm learning to love VS Code and GitHub to help me do really exciting, complex things that I never would have been able to do a year ago or 10 years ago, for that matter. And if you're kind of on that like fence, like I'm a little bit afraid of this because I'm not a developer, I'm hopeful that at the end of this, you like maybe become less afraid and willing to try a few things. I actually started my Python coding experience in M365 Copilot, got a few tips from a few actual developers, and then was able to like actually transition to GitHub Copilot. And my Python coding experience became a lot less painful and a lot better. And I was way more productive. So I'll share a little bit more about that. Microsoft Scout. This is that new kind of like what's going on. And I'm a big fan of Microsoft Scout. I will tell you from my own personal experience, there's still things that I love Scout for over M365 Copilot. And I hardcore tried to like nix GitHub Copilot because I liked the UI of Microsoft Scout a lot better as a non-developer for myself. And it has all the great benefits of M365 Copilot. And I learned today that GitHub Copilot can have all the same things. Like it can have WorkIQ and all this stuff. But I'm like, well, it's not just there automatically. And if I have to like tell it to install these things, like what do I even tell it? I don't even know how. Like I'm not a developer. Why would I know that? How would I discover that? And so like Scout is, I think, really great because you don't have to know that. Like, it just has, it's kind of like mashing together M365 Copilot and GitHub Copilot together into one user interface that kind of has the best of both worlds. And it has a lot of really great features. And I feel like maybe in 3 months' time, I might go back to it again. And I still use it every day in my job. And it does some things way better than GitHub Copilot or M365 Copilot that I absolutely love, like creating my expense reports, for example, or doing like transactions in another system. Like I use Maven, a third-party ISV. It has no awareness of what Maven is or how Maven works or the user interface. And I can literally be like, hey, Microsoft Scout, I need to go create 30 users in this system. Can you please help me? I need to give them this security role, this database access, like XYZ, whatever. Like, create the first one for me. I'll watch and make sure it's right. And then if you got it all right, then you can scale and do the other 30 for me, because I don't want to go click and do it 30 times. And Scout is fantastic at that sort of thing. And then Copilot Studio is that repeatable agent or workflow where you want to package this thing up and make it run. Scout, GitHub, and M365 Copilot also have this concept of making something repeatable. But when you want to really package it up and like give it a set of knowledge, especially as a partner, if you're going to package something up that you're going to sell to somebody else, you likely want to be considering Copilot Studio to create something that's more like a first-party experience. So, spoiler alert, my current tool of choice, the canvas that I've chosen that I live in all day, every day as a non-developer, is GitHub Copilot inside of VS Code. In January, February, I installed VS Code on my computer for the first time. I was very afraid of it. I was very resistant to it. And I was like, fine, I'll do it. Like, somebody told me I had to, and so I did. And best decision of my ever life. There are a couple concepts and like things that I had to learn about GitHub and VS Code in general. But a couple things that I really like about it is this concept of workspace that gives you context. Scout has a similar concept using co-create. And when I first started using Scout, I didn't actually, like I saw the button, but I didn't know what it was, so I didn't click it. But I learned about co-create, and co-create is very similar to workspaces. You can create workspaces. There are differences between the two, but I think it's very powerful. The output of GitHub Copilot is an artifact. And one of the things that I really like about using GitHub Copilot is that it creates things that I can actually look at. Whether that's a markdown file or an HTML file. It might even create Python. And while I can click on the Python, like I'm not a developer, so I don't actually know how to read the Python or like understand what's going on in the Python. But I do kind of appreciate, like, if I wanted to look at the Python, I could. And don't get me wrong, I could probably look at the Python and like kind of understand what it does, but I'm not a developer, so I don't need to look at it. But it can create slide decks, it can create issue lists, it can create prototypes, it can do all sorts of things. But the output of GitHub Copilot are those artifacts, and that's one of those things that I really like. Its workflow also has a memory. So like this idea that you can have these chats. And right now, if I was to open my VS Code, I probably have 35 different chats going. I've pinned many of them, and I use a command that you'll learn a little bit later on in my presentation called Fleet. And Fleet is super amazing and allows me to have a whole army of people working for me at all times. And it allows me to stay in the loop. So like I said, I have like 30 main chats going on that I'm kind of working on, like here and there. Like some of them I come back to frequently and say like, oh, okay, I'm ready to do the next thing. Other times I might leave a chat for a week and come back to it, depending on like what it is and how I'm working on it. But that memory is really important for me to be able to come back and be like, oh, hey, yeah, we were doing that thing. Can you also do this other thing that's related to it? And that's really powerful for me, because I'm context switching and have a lot of different things, different customers, different partners, different problems that I'm working on. So Copilot gives you a room to work in, and this is like the concept of the workspace. I actually created a workspace called JC Superstar. I named it this after Jesus Christ Superstar, like the movie. I was having like I thought I was being really funny moment. It probably is funny to maybe some people. It's funny to me, and that's all that really matters. And I made it gold because I wanted my Jesus Christ Superstar workspace, which has everything in it. It's like my all-in-one workspace, to be gold. I also have a Rhinestone Cowboy workspace that just has a few other things. It's purple. And I have a green one as well that's maybe like more boring, but I color coded my workspaces so I knew which one was what. But this is just kind of an example of like what you put in a workspace, and you can talk to GitHub Copilot like it is your personal IT developer. And if you aren't ready for it to make changes, or you want it to refresh a workspace, or you want it to make a workspace, or you want it to combine lots of folders together and make your Jesus Christ Superstar workspace, you can make it do that. And that's, I think, super powerful. All right. Oops. I accidentally exited full screen. I did not want to do that. Okay, back to full screen. And okay, next. All right, so there are two different modes, and I'm going to do a short little demo of this inside of GitHub Copilot that I didn't know about on day one, that I wish I knew about on day one. And if you're just getting started and you've installed either GitHub Copilot, the app, or you're using the GitHub CLI, and CLI is the command line interface. Like if you're old school and you want to like use a DOS prompt, like that's CLI. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I am not gonna live in the 1980s. I do not want a command prompt. I like the chat experience, but I like the preview that goes with my chat experience. It's all just kind of a preference thing. And there are little nuances of feature differences between all three, but definitely experiment, find what you like, and use it. Like, I'm not an advocate for like one is bad or one is good. It's just my own personal experience as a non-developer. So the two modes, there is plan mode and there is agent mode. There's actually three modes, but the two that I use most often are plan and agent. And by default, it's set to agent. And if you never discovered or learned about plan mode, you wouldn't know to click this button, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of buried in unless somebody actually showed you where to click and what to do. Plan mode is fantastic, though, when you're at the beginning of a new problem that you are talking with your IT business analyst, aka GitHub Copilot, about what it is you want it to do. When you're in plan mode, it's not going to actually do anything. It's just a plan. We're just brainstorming together. We're just thinking up of ideas and coming up with a strategy before we actually make it come to life. Agent mode is when it's actually running as an agent and writing code, doing whatever the thing is that you're asking it to do. So the idea that we want to let our agent, and in my case, I oftentimes choose to use like VS Code, GitHub Copilot, and let it call the specialist. In my day-to-day work, I do a lot of work on the Microsoft Business Process Catalog, and I have a workspace that has, like, at this point, I think I have about 18 different agents and 30 plus skills that are all specific to Business Process Catalog in my day-to-day work. Some of them like look at Excel files and format them. Some of them reconcile or compare two different Excel files. Like some of them generate Learn articles for me, which are like markdown files that I publish to make the actual Learn articles that I put. Sometimes it creates HTML. Some of them create PowerPoints. Like each skill that I develop, each agent that I develop serves a specific purpose to help me do my job, which in my case is like I need to like manage the Microsoft Business Process Catalog. So when I need a deck, I use like the agent figures out what skills to use when I need artifacts. And I just talk to it in normal language and say, I need to create something. So like in my case, I tell it, I need to make a Learn article that does whatever. And it just knows what that means. I've taught it what a Learn article is, what format a Learn article needs to be in. And P.S., I have lots of different formats for different types of Learn articles. Like a what's new article looks different than a business process article, which looks different from an implementation guide Learn article. So like this idea that I have different Word document templates or different PowerPoint templates, I just taught it what the different templates are. And said, I have these 5 different templates, and I want to be able to ask you to create any one of them automatically based off of this criteria. And if I don't provide you the information that's needed to create it, then you should prompt me and ask for it if you can't find it in one of these other places. So that's the basic idea. I just talk to it in normal language, like it's my personal assistant, my personal developer, and ask it to do the things I need it to do, and it figures out which skills, which artifacts to use. So one of the like skills that I learned when I was using GitHub Copilot, and you can actually do this in any of the copilots, but my tool of choice is GitHub Copilot inside of VS Code. You can do this in regular Copilot. It was a life changer. It was kind of similar to like what Frederick was describing if you were on his keynote earlier. He described asking it to create an infographic. And I haven't actually tried asking it to make an infographic. An infographic is kind of a very specific, like one-pager type format. Super powerful, super useful. The one that like really stuck with me and I use a lot is I actually ask it to create HTML reports. And so I say, can you make an HTML report that fill in the blank, right? It can be whatever. You can ask it to make architecture diagrams. You can ask it to summarize things. You can ask it to build reports with counts and make KPI tiles on it. Like it can build and summarize and it'll figure out, oh, I need to write Python code to do this, or oh, I need to call the PowerPoint skill, or I need to call the Excel skill, or the whatever skill. Like it figures it all out. But you can kind of just say, hey, I want an HTML report that fill in the blank, like whatever you want. The other like really important thing that I like to do with GitHub Copilot is, and this might be a side effect of like I'm ADHD and my brain is constantly going a million miles an hour and I can't do everything all at once, is I have created a to-do list. So sometimes I'm in there like chatting with this thing and I'm like, look, a squirrel. And what do you do with all these look a squirrel ideas that you had and you're not sure, like, it's not really a task for right now, but I don't want to lose it. And so I've actually created this concept of a to-do. And so I actually taught my GitHub Copilot that if I ask it to do stuff that we're not going to do right now, I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. Like, or maybe we need to come back to that. And because I'm talking to it, it's constantly building and updating my to-do. And if we work on something that was on my to-do list, it automatically check marks it off for me. So if I go back and look at my to-do list, it's marked off all the things that we've actually done. And to-do lists are very helpful for me. Maybe it's an ADHD side effect. It might be helpful to you, but it's a tip that like somebody else gave me, like ask it to make you a to-do list for all of your follow-up ideas. And if you just cut, like you're in the middle of a chat and you're like, ooh, we should also think about doing this, but not right now. Like you can literally tell it that and it can go put it in your to-do list for later. When one agent is not enough. So fleet, hashtag fleet. I learned hashtag fleet about a month ago and oh my God, it was life-changing. And so I'm going to show you some examples of this, but like it's another one of those tips that I was like, holy cow, this is awesome. I am now like 10 times as productive because I have a whole fleet. I have a whole army of agents that can now work for me. Sometimes the tasks that I'm working on are really big. I might like in the context of like the Microsoft Business Process Catalog, it's oftentimes like I tell it to make fleets and I'm like, spin off one fleet for each end to end. So like we're doing whatever the thing is that we're doing. Maybe I added a new column to the business process catalog, or I'm trying to enrich a specific column. And I can say use hashtag fleet or backslash fleet to fill in the blank. Fleet is this special little like secret code that if you didn't know and nobody told you, you wouldn't know to tell it to do this. But it's a little tip that I think is super helpful when you're vibe coding. When you have something that's a really big task, and it could be 5 completely disparate different tasks that you can say, hey, use a fleet as like, and go do all of these in parallel. And it'll spin off agents behind the scene to do those tasks for you. You can also take a really long, big, complex task and like divide it up. And sometimes you need to give it a hint. Sometimes you don't. Like I oftentimes give mine a hint of like what I want the fleet to do. So when I'm working on my business process stuff, it's very common that I'll use a command like do this end to end. But if you have 5 different Excel files, you could say use fleet to investigate and compare each one of these files. And so if you had 5 files, it would spin off 5 fleets. And you don't necessarily need to tell it to use 5 fleets. It'll figure that out on its own. But /fleet, super powerful, allows you to like have multiple agents. Think about like hiring temps to go do the tasks for you that are super long and super big. The other one, and I like this one's super brand new to me. I've already used it a handful of times, but I love it. And if you don't know it, like you should learn about it. Rubber duck. The concept here, and it's kind of a funny one, but bear with me. And you need to type in and honestly, you don't even need to type /rubber-duck. If you type it wrong and you just say, hey, use rubber ducky, and you spell it like 2 words and you say ducky with a Y or with an IE, it'll still understand and figure out the context of what you mean. The concept of rubber duck is that you're like talking to it. It's like this like inanimate object that's like, I don't know, the cartoon character. I don't know if there's a good analogy like Winnie the Pooh or something like that, but it's a rubber duck. But you talk to it and you can like spit ideas off of this thing and it'll talk back with you. It'll ask you clarifying questions. It will challenge your assumptions. You like the prompt here, like you don't even need to say these things. You can just say, will you rubber duck this whole project for me? And it understands what rubber duck means. Like the prompt here, but like if you give it more clues of like what the ideas are that you're wanting to bounce off of the rubber duck, like it will give you better, more pointed. But if you just kind of vaguely say, hey, rubber duck my workspace for me, it'll go rubber duck your whole workspace for you and bounce ideas off of you, challenge your assumptions. Look at the design. Like if you hypothesize that there's maybe a better way to do something, you can say, hey, like, will you rubber duck this? I think there might be a better way to do this. And it will look at it and evaluate and tell you if there is a better way to do it. All right, so now it's time to do a demo. How am I doing on time? I gotta hurry up. It's okay though. I'm gonna minimize this and we're gonna do my first demo. So I'm gonna do my second demo first, and then I'm gonna do my first demo. I'm doing them out of order. So my first demo, I'm actually gonna use Microsoft. You're not gonna know. This is gonna be my first demo. That's great news. So this is my first demo. So I'm in Microsoft Scout, and this is a real life thing I did. I was on a call with someone, and they're like, "Man, I wish I really had an agent to do blah," right? And like, so I wrote this prompt, and I was like, it's actually like, and I'm gonna like fairly tell you, it's a pretty poor prompt, but I was overly amazed with how good it did on try number 1 of this agent that I built. That I've actually shared this agent with a number of people. So I literally wrote into my GitHub Copilot. Now, you could try the same prompt and you may not get the same results because I have in my co-work, in my, like what I do in my work IQ, I have a lot of business process knowledge and skills and so on. So like, you're probably not going to get the same results if you were to copy and paste this. I'll happily give this to anyone, but I want to build a really simple agent/skill that I can easily share with partners, that is specifically designed for sellers and pre-sellers of Dynamics 365 products, that helps them use a process-focused approach to the sales process. The agent skill should be able to take an input from the seller that describes a problem, challenge, or goal a customer has in their business. The agent should be grounding in the business process catalog. The output of the agent should be some guidance of which business processes and which technology products they should be focusing on. And I grammatically didn't even type this well, and position to help the customer transform. Ideally, the output would provide some high-level benefits of the technology and how the business process can solve the business problem. Can you help me build something simple that is easily packaged and demonstrated? Like, it's not a terrible prompt, but I would tell you it's maybe not a very detailed and not a very good prompt. I'm not very specific here. I did give it inputs, outputs, like what I expected. And so it started talking to me, and it's chatting away. And then it created something for me. And it said, oh, you can test it directly by invoking this. And I was like, okay. So then I typed in, so in this case, like, it created a new skill for me. And the backslash, if you're not familiar with like using skills, backslash is how you access all of your skills. So it created a new skill called D365-Process Advisor and gave me a sample. And so like, this was the exact, so I literally like clicked the copy button, like this little 2 paper icon, and pasted it into the chat and hit enter. And I was like, okay, D365 Process Advisor, which is the skill it just built. And then I said, customer problem. We're a manufacturer dealing with demand volatility, supplier delays, excess inventory, poor visibility into production capacity. Which business processes in D365 technology should we focus on? And then it spit out for me. I was like, oh, it kind of didn't like something about itself, but it fixed it. And then it output this whole thing for me. What is my recommended focus? It told me which business processes I should lead with and why it matters, which technologies I should position along with a positioning angle and a process impact. It gave me the benefits to the business, discovery questions I can ask to the customer, and a seller talk track. Like, that's pretty awesome. I've tested this with a whole bunch of different like examples, and I'm getting pretty consistent results. But the basic idea here, like, I vibe coded this and it built an agent for me from that 3-sentence input. And I tested it with, this one thing, which it actually gave me. And I've tested it a lot more than this, but because I literally asked it, well, how do I test it? Like, you built it, and then it told me. And so then I tested it and gave me pretty good results. So then I continued on testing it. I'm going to switch over now to my VS Code. And for those of you who are non-developers, you're like cringing right now, and that's okay. VS Code, for those of you that don't know, can do a lot of really, really powerful things. And this is, I was telling you about this. This is my Jesus Christ Superstar. What I want to do is I'm going to take this same exact prompt and I'm going to give it to a new chat inside of GitHub Copilot, and we'll let it run. We'll come back to it. It'll take a couple minutes, so we're not going to sit and watch it, but, I'm in my VS Code. I've got GitHub Copilot installed. So, if you don't have the chat window open inside of VS Copilot or VS Code, it's this little toggle chat button in the upper left-hand corner that opens up. And when you want to make a new chat, you hit the plus icon, or you can press Control N. And I'm going to paste that same exact prompt that I used in Scout and press Enter. This will take a handful of minutes. We're going to come back to it a little bit later on in my demo and my presentation, and we'll look at the results of what it does. And I'll use the exact same prompt that I used in Scout to show you what its output is. I'm going to get slightly different results because I'm using Scout versus VS Code and they're different chat sessions, but it'll give you an example of exactly what that does. But while that is thinking and doing its thing, we are going to switch back to my slides and we'll come back to it a little bit later on. So this idea here is that you can take a vague idea and turn it into a plan. And in my case, I took a vague idea in that prompt that you just saw, and like it turned it into an actual usable agent skill. And if you don't know if it should be a skill or an agent, you can ask it, like, should this be an agent or should this be a skill, or should it be both? And sometimes it might be both depending on whatever you're doing. The good news is like, if you're not sure, like, don't be afraid to ask Copilot. And when I was first installing VS Code and learning how to like write Python and do all these things, and PS, I still have no idea how to write Python. Copilot does, but I don't. And I don't know when I should write Copilot or Python and when I shouldn't, but Copilot does. I'm describing real life business problems and processes that I have and asking it to help me solve them. And when it tells me something that I don't understand, and believe me, it tells me stuff I don't understand all the time, I'm like, I have no idea what that means. I learned about dynamic acyclic graphs this week. I was like, because it was like, it kept saying DAG, and I was like, what is a DAG, a DAG? And I was like, what is that? What does that mean? And it was using Kahn's principle. And I was like, can you please explain this? Like, should I care about this, or like, should I trust you? Like that you just know what you're talking about. And so like, don't be afraid to ask it questions. It is a chat. And if your child says something really confusing and off the wall to you, like they learned some new slang term at school, when they say it to you, you're just going to ask them like, what are these words that are coming out of your mouth? Treat it like your 5 to 7-year-old child, and your relationship with your Copilot will be vastly improved. So the 6-part prompt that fixes most bad starts. And this is, I want to like go through this because I kind of did this in my example. Even in my poor prompt that wasn't like super specific, I still kind of did this. I didn't tell it the role, like who I was. I kind of assumed that Scout understood who I was because like it has co-work and work IQ. But oftentimes when you're going to start a new prompt saying like, I am a program manager for Microsoft and I want to build something for partners, or I am an accountant and I'm building something for my manager, right? Or I am like, who are you? And what act should this like agent or AI, like who is it building this for? Because the results you get will be different. Context, what background matters, what should it produce, if there's things that it should avoid or not do. If you have examples, you'll always get better output. If I had given it an example of like a template of what I wanted the output to look like, examples are actually really important, especially if you want consistent results every single time you run the agent. And this will be an interesting thing that you'll see. Like I gave it, like Scout and VS Code got the same exact prompt, and I'm going to get 2 completely different formats. They might be similar, but I'm going to get 2 completely different formats because I didn't tell it. I didn't give it any boundaries or constraints or examples. And I didn't tell it like, what's the judgment? How do we know it's done? And so there's a few components of my prompt that I showed you in my example that I was missing, that if I want to make the output better, I would include those things. But if you don't include those things in the first prompt, you can come back later and say, if I really liked the prompt that Scout gave me, I could say, this is the format I want. And so if VS Code doesn't come up with the same results, I could be like, this is the format I want, but maybe VS Code will come up with some other thing that the Scout didn't. I could be like, I want this format, but also add this other thing that you came up with that Scout didn't, right? As an example. So prototyping like a product manager. So like when you're vibe coding, Like, you own the product. You are the product manager of whatever you're producing. And so thinking like a product manager can help you create better outcomes from whatever it is you're going to vibe code and you want to solve the problem for. So this concept of like sketching the user stories, asking for a thin slice. So like, don't try to eat the whole elephant, like just eat a bite. Ask it to like do a mock-up. Ask it to do just the first row. Ask it to do just the first scenario before you make it go off and use the fleet. So I taught you /fleet earlier, but don't, like on pass 1, don't use fleet, because you don't want it using up a bunch of tokens doing a fleet if it didn't even follow the right instructions on the first one. So like, always make it start with something small and test it and validate and improve, like, oh, it did work. And oftentimes I'll say like, okay, do one more. So I make sure that you really got it and that you saved the right things into your memory or into your skill and it's repeatable. And then I scale up and say, okay, great. It looks like it's working. Go ahead and do the rest of them now. Do not trust the first answer. Copilot, it doesn't matter if it's Scout, M365, Gemini, ChatGPT, it doesn't matter what engine you're using. It can and will be confidently wrong. And I don't know if you've never used Copilot before, like, it is like literally designed to be like, I did it right. Like, it is so confident. Just like your 5 to 7-year-old is. It's like, I did it. I'm done. I'm like, they're seeking your approval, right? They're like a small child and you are their parent and they just want you to be proud of them. And so they are like, look at me, I'm awesome. And it may not have been awesome. And that's why you as the human exist. So you have to test it. You have to look at it. And just because it says that it knows what it's talking about, don't trust it. You can also ask for an independent reviewer of whatever it makes. And I actually strongly recommend that. Like, have it write something and then, like, in a new chat, ask it to independently review whatever the other AI made, and the other AI can now go poke holes in it. So don't trust it. Like, trust but verify. Like, assume it's wrong. Let the agent do the busy work. So this concept that like we can use AI and agents and GitHub Copilot to like do lots of amazing tasks for us. So in my work, like I do a lot of Excel file manipulation. I need to do a lot of mass updates inside of a system. I am not a developer. I don't know, like I know what an API is. I'm technical enough to understand that, but like I am never going to write an integration that calls APIs, but I have written thousands of lines of Python code that call Azure DevOps APIs. I've written thousands of lines of code that call Maven APIs. Not because I'm an expert in APIs and how those APIs work. APIs are oftentimes very, very well documented and they're pretty discrete what an API does. And even if you don't understand the API, most of them are self-documenting and like AI can figure it out. But I understand the business process and like what it should do and what it shouldn't do. And so I'm better prepared to write a spec and tell it like how that integration between these two systems should work. And so I'm actually better prepared to make an integration between two systems that I own the business process for than an IT person oftentimes is, because they need to understand those business processes and they don't necessarily always understand the ins and outs and all those like gotchas and like things that you're thinking about in the back of your brain to make a really good agent. Good AI tasks versus risky AI tasks. Like, it's okay to slow down. Don't try to bite everything off in one chunk, and keep that human in loop. We already talked about this, so I'm not gonna like spend a bunch of time on this one. And these are just a few examples. I think in my demo, I kind of showed a few. I want to actually get back so I can actually show you, but I do have a few like before and after. So making your prompts better is like half the battle here, but making it iterative is really the key. And so your call to action before I kind of switch back into my quick demo and open it up for questions is like, use AI to help you draft. Like whether you choose to use Copilot Studio or ChatGPT or Gemini or GitHub Copilot or Scout or whatever tool you have available to you, use it to help you draft. Prototype one annoying thing. Like every single one of you has something in your job that's annoying. And your homework is to go describe the annoying thing to your AI and ask it to help you brainstorm a solution. After it brainstorms the solution and you vet its idea, then ask it to actually implement it. And then in week 3, test it. Try it out. Give it some examples. See if you can have it do the second one, and then make it something repeatable. And so my last slide before I switch back to my demo and we kind of see what VS Code did, and we'll open it up for questions while we kind of look at what VS Code did, is start small, give it examples, force those trade-offs, and verify everything that it creates. So I'm going to open it up for Q&A, but I'm also going to switch back to my VS Code and we're going to see, I forgot to switch it to autopilot and I wanted to show you these couple things. So if you're first timer to GitHub Copilot, a couple things. I am in agent mode. I talked about agent versus plan mode. So if you want to be in plan mode where it won't actually write any code, that's this little drop down box here. The other thing is autopilot. So just below that, it's set to default approvals. Had I switched this to autopilot before I started, it would have done this for me. So I'm just going to say self-contained, do the L1 plus L2s, the questions, I'm answering it. If I was in autopilot, it would have chosen answers for me automatically, but it's confirming those. It's going to take another minute or so for it to kind of do its thing and build me an agent. But while that's running, and we'll kind of watch it here on screen, I should have maybe waited a little longer before I switched back to my PowerPoint. I'll open it up for any questions that we might have.
Yep, we've had a lot of good chat, a lot of good comments in the chat. We've got about 1.5 minutes before Aurelian's ready to jump in with us from France. But yeah, I think I'm looking back to see if we missed any questions. If anybody has anything, you can raise your hand.
We can stay in and try to answer them in the chat as well, because
I know that'd be another great option. So if you want to throw them in chat, we can switch over and let Aurelian jump in, and Rachel will stay behind and answer some things in chat there.
Rachel, I can't find your YouTube channel. I think it was something unplugged.
It's dynamics365lady.com.
Okay.
You did have an unboxed channel at some point, though.
Oh, yeah. My unboxed. Sorry, so my website is Dynamics365lady. My YouTube channel is Dynamics365. It's actually, I think it's my name. It's at Rachel Profitt. I'll find it. I'll put the link in.
Awesome.
Link down below. Click subscribe and follow.
Yeah, for sure.
Rachel, wonderful job as always. That was great. I wasn't expecting. I'll just be totally transparent. I wasn't expecting to learn anything, and I learned a metric frick ton.
A metric frick ton. Yeah. You didn't think that you were going to learn something from a non-developer about how to vibe code? You're great. Way more techie and a way more developer than I am. But I've learned a lot over the last 6 months about vibe coding, and it's been super powerful. And some of these little tips, I think, if you don't know, the \fleet and the \rubber duck, life-changing.
That's the best. I love that.
If you take nothing else away, if you already know about VS Code and GitHub Copilot, super powerful. So I'll go back through this chat and try to answer some of these questions and make sure all my contact info is in the chat.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Appreciate it.